Hey everyone, and welcome to another installment in the Halo implementation series. In this video, we're going to be following on our project series on this, and we're going to be talking again about tracking projects. Specifically in this video, we're going to be talking about milestones, what they are, how to use them, all that kind of stuff. Again, with me today, and you know, if you're a frequent visitor to the site, you know what I'm about to say now. And you know, with me today I have my favorite person at Halo. I have the legendary legend of all legends, and that is Mr. Morgan Aspinall. So Mr. Halo himself. Hey Morgan, how you doing?
Hey Chris, thanks again for having me and the kind words. Yeah, not helping my ego at all.
Never gets old, right?
Cool. Yeah, so yeah, as you mentioned, we've seen how we can create our projects, and we've seen how we can add budgets into our projects and our tasks to sort of associate some budgeted time towards project completion. In this session, we'll have a look at how we can add milestones into our project, and we'll take a brief look at some associated functionality as well. Okay. So, share the screen. Cool. The first thing that you're going to want to enable are more recent trials. I believe this has been enabled, but if you can't see what I'm about to show you, then you'll want to enable the milestones feature itself, and we can do that within our respective ticket types. So we're going to go, as usual, to configuration and then into tickets and ticket types. Where in here, against our ticket types, at the bottom of our details tab, we have the enable milestones functionality. So I'll go ahead and enable that for our project. Now, when the milestones functionality has been enabled for our respective ticket types, what we'll find is a milestones tab here. Now, again, similar to our budgets, I suppose, we have this table of contents where we're actually adding our milestones into our project, where we're just, giving a brief description of the milestone, just a title, I suppose. I'll just call this one a milestone. A sequence, so we can actually order our milestones, of course. A start and end date for our milestone, so we can start to put, a rough milestone related timeline into our project. I say this one commences today till the end of the month. Then down here, we can add our child tickets, our tasks, into our milestone. And then finally, we have our dependencies where we can make milestones dependent on one another. At the minute, I don't have any options in here because we don't yet have any milestones. So let me go ahead and save that first. And then we'll make another one. We might want that one to be rolling throughout September. And we'll pick the other ticket, our other child ticket, and we'll say that milestone 2 is dependent on milestone 1. Now, as it stands, right now, this current configuration, you won't find much change from a visual aspect. I suppose our one functional point to consider first and foremost is our tasks on a milestone that is dependent on another milestone will not be able to be actioned until our, well, in this case, let me be a bit more specific. In this case, milestone 2 is dependent on milestone 1. So we can't work on any tasks associated to milestone 2 until all of the tasks in milestone 1 have been closed off and the milestone itself has been completed.
Yeah.
Another feature is when we're using our milestones, we now have an option to filter our tasks based on the milestone that they are currently in. So again, when we're talking about projects in the real world where we might have north of 40 different tasks, you might not want to see them all in the list straight away. You might want the option to toggle their visibility or not. So by allocating milestones to that, or allocating the tasks to a milestone, we can then filter that list of tasks based on the milestone that we are looking at.
And it's interesting, and just for any sort of users coming in from different PSA tools, a lot of other PSA tools specifically call those phases. So you've got like a whole phase of the project, and then underneath those phases you have a whole bunch of tasks that you can work upon. And I think where, especially if you're coming in from something like Autotask, it can get really confusing as to what milestones are, because in Autotask speak, a milestone is actually a billing milestone. That would be, something along the lines of, we've got a fixed price that we're charging $5,000 for. And what we're then doing is we're saying, we're going to bill at different milestones. We're going to say, when this phase is complete, then we're going to bill $2,000. Then we're going to bill another $1,000 later on. So this could get really, the terminology is different if you're coming in from a different tool. So just bear in mind, if you are using another PSA tool, that when we're referring to milestones in Halo, we're actually referring to kind of to the phases within the project.
Cool. Yeah, thanks for that. So one point that I don't think we've discussed, but I do believe it is quite useful when we're talking about tracking projects, is how do we change the way that we view our tasks within the tasks tab of a project. So by default here, we're showing a Kanban view. We of course have the option to present a Gantt view. Funny enough, if I click that, nothing displays. It's quite an important point that that is because our Gantt is a timeline, we need to specify a start/target date for the task in question. So if you're going to be using the Gantt view for your projects, just bear in mind that you're going to want to be setting a start date and a target date for your respective tasks.
Yeah.
That way, our Gantt can actually show something a bit more meaningful.
And that kind of makes sense, actually, because again, you can't be having a Gantt chart which is kind of showing when the task starts and ends if you haven't got a start and end date in there. So it kind of makes sense that that doesn't work. So yeah, and I've seen a lot of my customers when I'm consulting on them for Halo, the exact same questions come up many times: is why can't I see that when I click on the Gantt view? And that would be the reason why, is because you need to have basically your start and end date of the task.
Cool. Yeah. So we've also got these three dots here where, firstly, we can change our view to one of the other views available in Halo. So table view, similar to the list of tickets that we see throughout the platform. So we have a table view when we're looking at our incidents and our opportunities, etc. So we can apply similar configuration here for our tasks within a project. Got a calendar view as well. Of course, that's also dependent on start dates and target dates actually being populated for those tasks. And then we've got some options here specific to our milestones, where we can show or hide the milestones for both completed and, show or hide the tasks associated to completed and or locked milestones. So again, there's quite a lot of agency over exactly what tasks it is that you want to see at any given point. So if tasks against a completed milestone, you might not want to show because they've already been done. Tasks against a locked milestone, you might not want to show because you're not going to be working on them. You only want to see what you have to do within the current milestone. So we have that option now as well for you. I'm going to pop back to table view. just because I want to mention how we can amend the table that we actually have here, more specifically amend the column profile that's being used when viewing our tasks. And perhaps we might want to first add the milestone into our column profile, and secondly, we might actually want to group by it as well, so we can get a collapsible list of all of the tasks within our respective milestones. So firstly, we want to make sure that we have a column profile that is applicable for our project tasks. So we can do that in configuration tickets views, where we have our column profiles option down here. And then we have our project task view. This is something that is baked into the trials as well. So you might want to amend this one instead of creating a new one from scratch. And what I'll do here is I'll add our milestone column in, and I'll edit that column, and I'll say we actually want to group by that. Just like so. And perhaps I want to rename it to phase as well.
Yep.
So we've got our project task view, our project task column profile. It's worth mentioning how we apply this column profile to the child tickets of a project. So, of course, more generally speaking, what we're looking at when we're talking about projects is we're looking at parent-child tickets. Now, parent-child tickets can be applicable to more than just projects and project tasks. Maybe incidents and problems is another example of parent-child relationships. Now, if we're talking about incidents and problems, and we have a parent problem ticket and a number of child incidents below it, we don't want to show the milestone in that case because it's not applicable. So we can actually have different column profiles utilized for the child tickets of a given ticket type. And the key word there is given ticket type. So we know from that we're going to be amending our child ticket column profile within our ticket type configuration. So I'm going to go to configuration tickets, ticket types. I'm going to go to the project ticket type, which is of course the parent. And then down here, we have our column profile for child tickets. So this is the option that we're making use of in order to establish the column profile that's used whenever we're viewing tasks of a project. Similar to that, the option below is our default list type for child tickets, which we've set to Kanban, and that explains why when we go into our project, first and foremost, we see the Kanban list. So we could, of course, change that to be table view if we wanted. We could change it to be either task or agent specific Gantt view, or calendar view or tile view, or any of the options in there.
And of course, if we change the default type there at this point to be Gantt, then we'd need to make sure that our tasks have the start and end date against them. Otherwise, we won't see anything again. Yeah.
Absolutely. I don't think it's on this version yet, but we've got an upcoming feature that is going to allow us to automatically set the start date and the target date from our ticket templates. Let's see if it's already in here. That would be in our values tab.
That would be nice, actually, yeah, to be able to set it at this level.
Oh, cool. Yeah, so we've already got it in this version. So again, a couple of sessions ago, we had a look at our ticket templates. Quite important that you go back and watch that. Without watching that, this won't make much sense to you. But those that have watched that will know what we're talking about when we're talking about our ticket templates. And within the configuration of our ticket templates, we have the option to set both a default start date and a target date. So you might want to set the start date to today, and then the target date for a week's time. Then everything will at least come in to that Gantt view. It will all be the same. Of course, it's all going to have the same start date and the same target date, unless you go into each individual task and slightly adjust those. So again, in the values tab. But yeah, so we can default something into the start date and the target date, such that if you did want to use Gantt view as your default, you would at least have everything there present for you to then be able to amend those dates accordingly.
Yeah, yeah, that would be cool. I mean, I think that's something that's that would be good to have added in there. And like you said, if you know this isn't going to make sense if you haven't watched the the first video that we did. So I'm going to link to it up here somewhere. I don't know which way I'm pointing, wherever I am. I'm going to link to it up there somewhere, and go and have a watch of that video where we explain kind of what templates are and how they work and all of that kind of stuff. Yeah.
Cool. Lovely. So we can see that based on the change to the column profile that I added in, we've now got our tasks presented under our collapsible milestone list. Now, it's a bit weird that milestone 2 is above milestone 1, and I believe that we can address that by changing the sequence of our milestones. So if I set that to 6. Refresh. This is either something that we've recently changed or something we're about to change. I know that other people have asked about the ordering of milestones. Yeah, okay, it doesn't look like we've done that just yet, but yeah, the point stands, I suppose, and in the interim, you always have the option to change the name, which I believe is what we're basing it on at the minute.
Yeah, and I would actually, and again, that's especially if you're coming in from a different tool, you're using a different PSA tool. This might be where kind of that stuff would translate into phases and tasks. You might have your first milestone called installation, and your second one called, or first one called setup, and then the second one called installation, and then third one is deployment or something like that. So you might kind of want to break them up like that. And rather than just calling them milestone 1, 2, and 3.
Yes, yeah, absolutely. Now let's go back to our table. Still 2 and 1. So if we hop back to our column profile, into configuration and then into tickets, views, configure our column profiles, namely our project tasks view. We can actually see in here that we've overridden or we've established the sorting in here based on our appointments. Yeah. I'm going to take that out. I'm going to sort based on that, and we'll sort by milestone. Refresh. So now our list has been reordered.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah, and I mean it probably wouldn't make too much difference if you did name those as installation or whatever, because you just make sure that your setup phase is going to be before your installation phase, and then your deployment phase and all those kind of things. So you can kind of just name them. So yeah, that you might want to call installation, and then you'd say, okay, now we know that one's installation. That's going to be, or maybe the other way around, setup, installation, deployment, whatever.
Yeah. Well, let's call this one deployment, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I think at the minute it's not sorting by sequence, but that is something that we're aware of and something that we're going to be doing in the short future.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean that's great though, because it still gives you the ability to see kind of really easily what what each of those phases or milestones actually mean. So you can then say, okay, well, even if and we can reorder them anyway, as we saw, but you could say anything that falls under that deployment phase, we're going to know that's going to be done potentially after the installation phase anyway. Yeah.
Or we might even want to add start date and target dates in here and order by that.
Yeah.
So we've got like a timeline. So there's a few options at your disposal there.
Yeah. No, that's cool.
Now one other feature that I wanted to mention, another new addition to project management in Halo, is a forecasting tab. So the intention of the forecasting tab, as it currently stands, is a way for you to add in expected number of hours each week that the assigned agents for these tasks will be performing on this project. And this is basically a means of making sure that you have sufficient resource to take on new projects at any given point in time. And that's also an option that we enable within our ticket type configuration. Again, in our details tab, we have this forecasting tab. We enable that. What we'll find is a forecasting tab on our projects. Now, the agents that we have in here will be the agents assigned to our respective tasks. Similar to our budgets, we're not concerned about forecasting time on project 1, 2, 3, 4 if Chris isn't actually working on that project at all. We only want to see the people that will be working on the project.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, as we start to allocate the resources to our project, we can then come into our forecasting and specify an expected number of hours that James is going to be working on this particular project. Now, at the minute, that's all it does. This was added in very recently. So it doesn't tie back to any other functionality just yet, but it is something that we're going to be improving on as sort of a phase 2 later on in the year, I believe. The other point to consider is that our forecasting tab or our forecasting functionality is also available in the timesheets module. So we've got a forecasting option up here where we'll be able to see the total forecasted hours that any given agent has in any given week. So, of course, you've got a project by project forecast, and then you can come into your timesheets module and you can actually have a look at a high level how much time people are working on projects over the next month or so. Similar to that, we've also got this planning option that is, again, initially developed for our project management, where we can have a look over a given span of time, how much availability a given agent has. So I believe if we backdate this, we're having a look at time that's been logged in the system. And if we're forward dating this, then we're having a look at appointments that are in your Halo calendar for a given agent. And the intention of the planning section and the forecasting section is as follows. Your planning section is a way for you to determine the resource that can be allocated to a new project. So a new project comes in, can we assign Morgan 1 or 2 of these tasks? Yes, he doesn't have anything booked out for the next 2-3 weeks. Cool. So that's about our allocation, and then our forecasting is about the actual amount of time that we're going to be spending on the tasks that we have been assigned. So planning is about who do we assign to, forecasting is about how much time are they going to spend on what has been assigned. Hopefully that makes sense.
That's yeah, absolutely, and that's actually really good, because a lot of the other tools that I'm seeing are not doing forecasting and planning as well as this is. So so I really like that new feature.
Cool. Yeah. And as I say, that's a V1 that was introduced a couple of months ago. It's something that we're going to be improving on. The relationship between the planning section and the forecasting section is something that I imagine will be enhancing. But as with all of the features in Halo, it's really you guys, the community, that help drive the product forward. So
yeah.
If you can see a way for us to make that functionality even better, then you can head to ideas.halopsa.com to add that as a suggestion in our open community forum, or reach out to Halo directly. Yeah,
absolutely. And or you can leave a comment below, and we'll make sure we get that back to Morgan and his team, and make sure that gets addressed. So yeah, no, there's definitely some cool stuff around projects. And just with that, I guess, so at the moment, if you had an engineer that was doing some of their time as a service desk engineer and some of their time as a projects engineer, is the forecasting going across the two, where you can kind of say, I know that I can confidently pull this person off the service desk, because I've got the capacity to be able to do that, and if I pull him off there, it's not going to affect anything we're doing on the service desk, and kind of make him work more on projects and stuff like that. Is the forecasting doing that level at the moment, or?
I suppose it could do. Bear in mind that the forecasting is something that we enable within our ticket type configuration. So if it's not enabled for incidents, which it was not intended to be enabled for anyway, then that would not apply, no. But for that example, I would probably be using the planning section instead of the forecasting section.
Yes. Yeah.
So if we're talking about the planning section, then absolutely, yeah. What you would want to do is you want to make sure that you have appointments in your calendar for the certain types of work that you're going to be doing. You might block out 2 to 4 hours a day just as support. And then you can use that planning section as an indicator of, okay, so we've got our 4 hours support here. Morgan's also got 2 appointments with 2 customers outside of those 4 hours tomorrow. So he has very little availability tomorrow. So it's all based on appointments that are in the calendar. So as long as that calendar is reflective of one's capacity at some point in the near future, then the planning section should reflect that capacity and allow you to allocate resources appropriately.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's worth having a play with and setting up. So if anyone wants to see that side of things more, in more detail, then obviously reach out to us through the various channels, and more than happy to kind of show you that stuff. So
for sure. One final point that I think I didn't mention when I was talking about milestones and milestone dependencies is when we're updating the dates of our milestones, by default, the dates of our dependent milestones are also updated respectively. Now, there is an option in our project management configuration that bypasses that and just updates all of the dates on all of those milestones. So if you did just want to shift the whole project and all of the milestones within that project back by a month, then you could have this enabled. Otherwise, our shifting is just for those dependent milestones.
Okay.
Yeah.
That makes a lot of sense. Excellent. Well, I think this has been a really, really good session around kind of milestones and planning and forecasting and that kind of thing. There's some really cool stuff in here. So hopefully everybody's got some really good use out of this. We will be continuing a little bit around our project series as well. we're going to be talking on the next video around kind of how to bill for these projects. So, you know, how to do that fixed price billing if you've got $5,000 and, you know, how to kind of bill for that. So we'll talk about that on the next video. So, you know, and if you're getting any value out of these, I would really appreciate it if you liked and subscribed. It does really help us to kind of keep doing these videos for you guys. And, you know, reach out to us if you need any help. So I really appreciate it, Morgan, as always. And I, you know, shout out to Halo, and thank you so much to Halo for letting us do these and letting us use your time. You know, it really is appreciated. So thank you very much.
As always, yes, a pleasure. Thanks very much. See you on the next one.
Thanks. See you on the next one. Cheers.